Paul, I'm so excited to be able to engage you on the investment opportunities in the South African and African farming. I want to thank you for all the work you guys are doing at FNB, First National Bank. We do a lot of advisory and consulting work with First Rand, which is a parent company that we all know about for FNB, and I'm really, really grateful. Good morning. How are you, Paul?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you very well. How are things? Are you at the office or you're at home?
No, I'm at the office.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. What I would like to do is to get a little bit more sound. Are you able to raise the volume a little bit for us?
Okay. Yes, my sound is high. Perhaps I must join. I'm on the iPad. Perhaps I must join on the laptop.
Well, let's just test from our. Let's just test from the floor. Can you guys hear Paul? Okay, are you guys okay with the sound, or should we try to get the volume raised a little bit? How are you guys feeling? Maybe we can test with our EmpowerWorks team. Kanye, what do you think?
I think we can give it a shot, and if there are any sound problems that arise, we'll shout.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, Paul, give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself so we can know who you're dealing with. I really like to have a fun fact in your introduction as well, something that we would be surprised by.
Okay. Not sure if I tell the whole story, but perhaps just to start with, I'm a rural boy coming from the east of Hammanskraal. The place is called Marapjani, just a few kilometers from what we call Bela Bela, which is Varamband. Grew up in the rural area. Obviously, in the rural area, you get inducted into the agricultural sector. So I was a rearer of goats. We had a bit of maize and sorghum production. Interestingly, during those times when I grew up, in terms of support, there was non-existent support. We were not even aware that there's government support, but we could produce some. Produce and actually do some milling as well for domestic consumption, not for the market. And it was on a contracting basis in terms of agriculture. So we had no tractor. So we contracted people to do the plowing for us. And also for sorghum in terms of threshing, we also contracted somebody to do it for us. And the payment was actually through bags. So he will take about 3 bags from what we have produced. So that was the case. So that's my induction into the agricultural sector. So I grew up there, and then from there I studied agriculture at school as well, and then I went to the university. I did a brief break before going to the university. I worked for a year at the hospitality at Sun City. I was actually a slot technician, where guys used to win a lot of money there. So I worked there a bit. As a slot technician there. If some recall, there used to be something called the $1 million win at Sun City. That's during those times when people flock to Sun City for entertainment. So then I went to university, and then I completed my degrees, and then my first job was actually, and this is due to the fact that You finished at the university, and then so what? You take whatever is available. So the first thing was to get a job at a high school. Fortunately, it was a farm school in Middelburg. So I went there, and I didn't have money. Interestingly, it was a one-way ticket for an interview. I was not sure, how I was going to, get back, but. I got there, got into the interview, and the principal was waiting for me. Says, "Here's a place for you to stay. You can start working," and that was my first job. And then from there, I moved from the school to a research institute in KZN. Actually, that's a research institute come college in the north of KZN in Mpangeni. So that's my journey, and I was in the research area, and then I got recruited into the bank, and since then I have been with the bank. So that's my journey.
Thank you.
In the agri space.
Thanks, Paul. I'm always fascinated by people's first jobs. I like to have fun in these sessions, by the way. I want everybody to put into the chat what your first job was. My first job was actually bagging groceries, packing bags at a grocery store. That was my first job. And I did that job to gain, I did that job to have access to petrol money when I was in school. I'm always fascinated by people's first jobs because people see you with this power suit on, Paul, and they don't know that you actually have a journey, that you've come a long way in this. And I think it's encouraging to know. We got a lot of powerful people on this call, a lot of inspiring, young, brilliant, amazing human beings, but we all come from somewhere. And at the end of the day, this conversation is about investing in the future. And it's encouraging to know that you're at Sun City doing that job and you've come this far. So thank you for sharing that. Let's talk a little bit about, I am very aware of FNB's commitment, but I want to talk specifically about your role, your actual role, what you do on a daily basis. And then before we get into the nuts and bolts of this conversation. So what are you doing on a daily basis there? What do they pay you for?
Yeah, so I'm an agricultural economist. So
yes,
we have a division in the bank as an agricultural division. So you've got the financing part, and we have what we call the market research. So I do my role is mainly market research. We research all the commodities in the agricultural space, the whole agricultural macro and micro at macro and macro level. Input into decisions in the bank in terms of which areas to lend, risk issues that the sector might be facing, what are the mitigations, and so on. So that's basically what I do on a daily basis, monitoring the markets and also, participating in engagements within the bank in terms of lending, priorities, for us.
Got it. And a little bit more, I want to just talk a little bit more about what you've seen in terms of these commitment to investing in this particular sector since you started. I think it's important for people to be aware that there is an ongoing commitment, particularly to develop that sector of the market that are seeking to get into the developing economy and so forth. What are you seeing in terms of FNB's commitment to get young farmers off the ground?
Yeah, so we, in terms of our, investment into the sector, we are quite entrenched, and we have a very, very comfortable market share in terms of the agriculture sector in South Africa. If you look at into the, what we call transformation space, our commitment there in terms of, lending. We have put in place mechanisms for us to engage various people in the sector, to actually collaborate with them. Actually, we collaborate a lot with producer organizations in terms of lending in the space, because they are more closer to the farmers from a support perspective, because that's quite critical. Because most of the time you lack that in terms of support for them, knowing when to do certain things and so on. So we partner with them, but we also partner with some of the commercial farmers to actually support farmers in the transformation space. My understanding is that they no longer like to be called emerging or small farmers. So we use more transformation, lingo in terms of dealing with them. So that's where we play. We also, in collaboration with, the state in terms of the various, initiatives, the blended finance, we're trying to get in there to see if we can actually scale up our initiatives in terms of funding in the agriculture sector. So broadly, that's how we have, played in the sector. And we have been doing this over time. Obviously, a lot of learnings there that we have seen over time. We had several projects that we ran in the Northwest, for example, in previous years. Learnings there. So there's a lot of learnings there. Quite challenging environment, but we committed to actually play a role in there.
Why did you agree to this? You're a busy man. You got a lot going on, and we know that. First of all, we want to say thank you, but why is this important to you? Like, why did you say yes? And what do you ultimately want us to leave here with when it comes to the work you're doing and the work that F&B is doing in this sector?
Yeah, this is about collective commitment, the dialogues that we're having here, the insights that we are getting here, the immense wealth of knowledge that you brought into these discussions from various people. It's commendable, because although we're working in our own environment, it also requires that we get to know other people out there, that what they're doing, and from this engagements, people should be able to know exactly where we are, and obviously where they can actually contribute and help us to actually scale up the production in South Africa from an agricultural perspective. So obviously, from a commercial perspective, it's a machine that is running, but from a transformation perspective, there's a lot that needs to be done. But we're also facing this challenge of climate change, which requires a lot of innovation to actually, deal with the environment. South Africa is one of the hottest stressed countries, and production happens, on the back of, variability of climate, and it's changing over time. We have seen a lot of, disruptions to production in South Africa, but the sector remains relatively resilient to this. But it doesn't mean that we should be, complacent. We should continue to innovate. We should continue to, evolve around this, smart agriculture, and also how do we in future, cushion ourselves from this, frequent events of climate interruption.
And when you look at the current investment pulse, what is the thing that's sort of throbbing at a level that the bank seems to be excited to invest in? Like what, let's use more of a hierarchy. Is there a particular area where you're far more, uh, there's a little bit less risk, there's an appetite for investment? You know, when we look at the investment opportunities, let's kind of create a bit of a hierarchy. What's at the top for you guys?
Yeah, so when you're dealing with agriculture, that question of hierarchy becomes very, very, very tricky.
Okay.
Because you have got interrelations between sectors, and then you've got also a diverse environment in which you are producing. So you've got a broad geographic distribution in terms of where you can produce commodities, and also that this broad climatic areas present different challenges in terms of actually investment. So you may have a sector approach, but within that particular sector you might actually pick up certain commodities that are more investable. So, but if you look at it, perhaps to answer your question in terms of hierarchy, more on the export commodities. That's where the focus is. But obviously, export commodities also, they've got their own challenges. You've got issues of market access. You've got and most of them, mainly the horticulture sector. You need certainty in terms of water. Because they depend a lot on irrigation, and therefore you also have to consider that as well. So in terms of hierarchy, that's where I can say that you have the more exportable commodities. That's where we have seen appetite for actually expansions. Obviously, in recent years and in the past 2 years, we have seen a bit of a challenge in that export commodities due to developments of the international market from a pricing perspective, but also what we see in terms of the war situation that impact on the global economy, but also on logistics in the world. And if you look at commodities as well, on the grain and livestock side, they're very, very interrelated. If you pull the brakes on the grain sector, you're eventually going to hurt the livestock sector because it's highly dependent on the grain sector, because it's our livestock sector. It's about closer to 50% of agriculture, gross producer value in South Africa. So, and it's mostly done under intensive production systems, which means more reliance on the grain and oilseed side in terms of feed. So there's that interrelation. So if this one is closer to 50%, the field crops are about closer to about 30%. So you've got this, a significant chunk where you have you then have a challenge in terms of how do you then start prioritizing in terms of that particular hierarchy of commodities where you play, given that interrelation.
Before I ask you the next question, which is about public and private partnerships, I want to just throw forward quickly. We've got 2 more power panels happening before our Africa side of the conversation finishes at 2 p.m. Around 2:30. Our U.S. associates come online, and we're really, really looking forward to that. So, guys, hang tight. even if you listen with your headphones on, just keep this conversation fluid. Our next two panels is with food systems with Kurt Ackerman, CEO of SA Urban Food and Farming, Dr. a research fellow, African Center of Cities, and then we also have Tim Baker, chairperson of AgriHub. And then we're going to take a break at 12 p.m. and come back at 1. And at 1 o'clock, we've got the innovations that are working in Africa with Tombi Hadebe, acting executive manager, technology innovation. Then we got Kuliswa Mazizi, founder and CEO of Panalaman. And we got Prince Msomi, founder and managing director at Prejop BioLife. So we got some wonderful panels coming up. Paul, I want to talk about public and private partnerships. They can feel a little bit overwhelming. Let's strip them down a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about your views on the opportunities that exist in public and private partnerships.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to be talking agriculture in this sense.
Sure.
Not necessarily on the production side, but in terms of the value chain, looking at the value chain. So we have got challenges, for example, of logistics. From roads, rail, ports, private-public partnerships are critical to ensure that you have systems that are working so that you can get produce from farm to various markets, either domestic markets or international markets. So partnerships in along that the value chain in terms of where they can slot in, where there's availability or appetite and capacity from the private sector to partner with government or the state. It should be encouraged so that we can unlock opportunities there. So there's a lot of opportunities that you can unlock, especially from the agriculture side, and not only unlocking investment opportunities, but also lowering costs of transaction. Because if you have seamless logistics, you reduce the cost to the consumer eventually. So and there are opportunities there. In terms of investment, there's opportunities in terms of if you have that logistics sorted out, you are likely to have other businesses starting to invest in agro processing. Encouragingly, the industry and government and social partners have developed what we call agriculture and agro processing master plan, which details how we can unlock the sector, by commodity, and actually, detailing, even numbers in terms of unlocking opportunities. And if you look at agriculture itself, the potential to actually, grow employment is quite huge in the sector. Yeah.
I want to talk a bit about capacity building for farmers. When you look at the initiatives or programs, currently in place to educate and support farmers, what are those? What are, at the end of the day, you may discover there's somebody on this call who's going, I have a deep desire to take on this thing. I want to be a part of the future of sustaining this continent. I want to make sure that I position myself and my family to have intergenerational wealth transfer. I mean, this is huge. The opportunities are massive. And sometimes it's just one idea, one resource, one brilliant person like yourself that shares an idea that completely and radically changes people's lives. And so let's inspire people. What are the resources out there to help people engage in farming, to support farmers?
Yeah, so perhaps this platform is where we get new ideas, perhaps. So in terms of capacity, I mean, if you look at the farm, especially in the transformation space, you've got on-farm, challenge in terms of capacity to know how to produce and so on. But beyond that, that's not the only thing that you need. You need a whole value chain. So when he is done with production, I mean, which can easily be done in terms of providing the requisite knowledge and information for them. But what happens to that produce? Beyond that, how do they get access to the markets? How do they play in their own environments? How do we innovate around them getting produce to markets? What are the other tools that the farmers can use at their own scale for them to actually master what they're doing? In some instances, it's not necessarily that you are going to have a massive expansion on the part of the farmers, but them being able to do best at what they are doing at the resources that they have. But they need that kind of knowledge. They need the right tools. They need access to markets, because at the end of the day, it's about the rents and cents. Being able to produce and then be rewarded by selling your produce. If that does not happen, people get discouraged over time and look for other alternatives that they might find, and that is a big challenge. And there could be innovation. It can happen. I mean, we saw what has happened with COVID-19, massive disruptor. That changed the views about working patterns. Working from home, digital technology, sharing of information. We have seen about the proliferation of online, business in terms of food and so on. So, we need those ideas, innovation in terms of being disruptive, but disrupting in such a way that the small player can also participate in the economy at the scale that person has. So we must think broadly about it and allow participation. Also, financial intermediation, necessary. What risk tools can we use to actually alleviate pressure on the smaller guys, so that there's less pressure on them and they can produce.
Let's talk food security. How do we view the current food security landscape in South Africa at the moment, and what are the primary factors influencing the availability of the access to communities?
Yeah, so interestingly, if you look at the global, food security index, it indicates that if you look at sub-Saharan Africa, it's actually below the average in terms of food security. But if you look at South Africa in particular, the situation is not that bad, but you've got pockets of food insecurity, and that has been researched by the Human Research Sciences Council. The survey that they've done and the statistics South Africa's data that provides an indication of where the challenges are with the communities out there, and there's of course pressure points, but from a food availability perspective in South Africa, we are sufficiently supplied. The challenge is on the accessing side, and it's an income problem. And being an income problem means that we need to check up our efforts to actually grow the economy. Because when you grow the economy, that's when people can then participate in terms of being able to earn an income and buy food. Obviously, there are efforts, to redress in terms of social, disbursements. but the critical one is actually, growing the economy and allowing people to actually earn some income. But in terms of food security in South Africa, we are relatively secure, and we haven't yet reached there. And that is thanks to a very strong agricultural sector. And despite the challenges that we talked about, if you look at logistics, deteriorated road infrastructure, dilapidated, challenges with ports to get produce out of the country. We had challenges of that are externally induced, such as high commodity input costs such as fertilizer. Although this year it is a relatively better year in terms from that perspective. So farmers are operating under those tough conditions, but they have innovated in terms of technology. If you look at, for example, maize, production in South Africa, 20 years ago, yields were hovering around, just about four tons per hectare. If you look at even 40 years or 30 years ago, it was about 2.8 to about 3. Now we averaging about 6 tons per hectare in terms of the average for the country. And if you look at the hectarage, it has actually declined. So which means that there has been significant productivity gains over time. And if you look at the investment profile in the sector, the graphs is exponential. If you look at the debt in terms of the appetite to actually take more debt from the agricultural sector, it is also exponential. So that combination means that there's appetite for investment in the sector, which means you are unlikely to face, except when you have an intervention by nature. But if you look at it in terms of the investment that is put in place, you are secure in terms of future production. So if you look at also the research and development that is happening, by the private sector and the state as well, which is of course lagging, but there is some research coming out of there. It's quite impressive, and continuously the guys are trying to actually adapt to the situation of operating in this kind of environment. Moreover, we compete in a world which is full of subsidies, the Western world, and South Africa, almost non-existent, support, and that makes them even more resilient. That they have to actually, work more harder to actually, deal with this situation.
What I'm hearing from you is that we can be confident in this sector. It's a robust, rigorous sector. We heard from the Christo and his extraordinary research that there are opportunities, but it's a sector where it's secure, it's strong, it's robust, and it's, the risk levels, are, if you go into it with the right mindset and are really, really dedicated, the opportunities are massive. I want to open up the floor, if you don't mind. Are you okay with that, Paul?
Yes, no problem.
Yeah. These guys will ask you very hard questions, so hopefully you are braced for a few questions. I'd like to put out, open the floor. If anyone wants to, engage you, ask any questions. I know that you guys have been fully locked in. While we're waiting for a couple of hands to be raised to engage you, let's talk a little bit about the vision, the future. What do you see in your vision? If you put on your lens, before we answer that, I think Kanye has a question.
Good afternoon, Mr. Makube. I hope you are well. I would like to just first of all start with a question from the chat box. It's from Tapelo. Tapelo's just asking, what is the bank doing from a product perspective for micro farmers, and how are you helping them leverage the research, but also helping them use your complex financial products and features to have a livelihood? And of course, he says this is in line with the banks and P&L.
Yeah, so in terms of products that we have, I mean, we have got generic financial products, but we tailor, we tailor them to individual requirements in terms of, various, client base. We have a dedicated, person, especially for the transformation space, looking at, putting together risk mitigants that will ensure that the cost of funding is minimized, but obviously it depends on external players and so on. So there's a lot of collaboration in terms of that. So you don't necessarily have a ready-made product, to dispense, but you have a collaborative approach in terms of lending in that space, in terms of support. And as I indicated earlier, that we leverage on the industry as well, but also some of the large farmers, and also the value chain in terms of ensuring that some of the clients can have access to certain markets. So we link them. We try to link them to them, so that when you fund, you ensure that 3 or 4 years later, this client is still being able to operate without severe financial constraint, especially in a high or an elevated interest rate environment.
Before you guys proceed, I'm so sorry, Mr. Morris. There's just another question from Kutlo. I think some of the participants today are very shy to unmute themselves, so I'll just do the honor of just reading their questions out loud. Kutlo Mangwane would like to know if there are any agri-capacity funding opportunities for those based in Botswana.
Yes, in terms of the Botswana, the in-country team is there, and if you get in touch with FNB Botswana, you'll be able to get assistance there. We've got a team that deals with that from we call it the Africa team. And they are ready to actually engage, given the nuances of each country, in this case, Botswana. So interestingly, in terms of where we operate is Mozambique, Namibia, Lesotho, Botswana, Swaziland, Zambia. That's why, and Ghana. That's where we are. We are, we have a footprint on the continent. And interestingly, the biggest portion of our business actually mainly in the agri space, given that if you look at Africa, 35% of GDP is from agriculture. So it is expected that you will have an appetite in the agri space. I think you are
Mr. Morris, I think you are mute.
Yes.
You guys are attacking me. Jesus. Okay. So let me just be very clear. I love Botswana. and I need to make sure that we have resources for Botswana, guys. We need to get this office in Botswana rocking and rolling. So, Kutlo, thank you so much for raising this question. I see your hand is still raised, Kutlo. Would you like to ask a question further?
I do, actually.
Thank you.
Hi,
Go
Paul.
ahead.
Hi, everybody. So basically, Paul, with all due respect, I don't think you're doing enough, right? The Botswana market is very, in terms of FNB Botswana, it's mainly about commercial aspects. And in terms of capacity, it's about you having the money and proving that you have the business. So in terms of capacity, I don't think there's much being done in that space. In Botswana, for example, there's a lot of reliance on government, and I wish the commercial space will come in where we're looking into. I know that right now FNB Botswana is trying in terms of entrepreneurship and trying to push entrepreneurs, but in terms of agriculture and the agri economy or the agri ecosystem, I honestly don't feel like it's doing enough. And maybe that's something as FNB Africa, you guys should come in together and actually create something that's for the market, especially for startups there are a lot of farmers in Botswana. There are a lot of farming land, but in terms of actually capacity and starting, that's not available. Thank you.
Good luck. Let me just say, Paul, before you reply, this is why I love Botswana. I mean, these guys don't rest. The same as South Africa. The people are fighters. They want you guys to really say, at the end of the day, that you got our backs, and beyond just the talk. And I know you guys are going past talk, but here's my point: that if you were to say, Paul, you're going to get off this call and engage this Africa office, and in response to this, we would be happy. But anyway, what is your reply?
Yeah, I think point taken. Point taken on that. I'm in touch with the team in Botswana, and I think I'll convey that message regarding those challenges. But I think perhaps for Botswana, one of the constraints that I'm going to mention a few things about the challenges that some of the challenges that we face from an operating environment, and I think perhaps it applies to everywhere, even in South Africa. Access to information is critical. Where the farmers, do have, databases, getting them where they are, and then also the profile of the commodities that they play in terms of markets. When you develop business plans, doing projections and so on, you would like to get composite information around what are the prices, but and also how are prices determined in their particular sector, so that when you do lending, because remember we do long-term lending, and therefore you need a requisite information to actually assist you in actually doing proper planning for you to be able to assist some of the farmers. And most of the time, that has always been a challenge in terms of getting that information. You also have a situation where where the farmers are, they where are the situations. So that's where perhaps those who play in the technology space in terms of getting mapping where the guys are, their farms, and actually that's one of the things that we're trying to do, not only in on the continent, but also in South Africa, where you're able to actually get the geographic location of the farmers, the information about their environment in terms of rainfall, temperature, and so on, that happens in that area, because that is a set of information that helps you to determine what yields these people are able to do, to achieve, because at the end of the day, that is about the rands and cents. The output, what are the yields, what are the practices that these farmers are, what is their competencies, what is their level of expertise in terms of operating these particular farms. But the market itself, how strong are these markets? how transparent and how prices are determined, so that you have, when you talk long-term prices for lending, it's easier. So I think Tim, these interactions, getting to know Kikloano, if we get contacts, is a question of saying, you talk about a number of farmers. Perhaps that provides a link for us to say, here's
yes,
a list of farmers, here's the geographic distribution. Can we connect? Can we start, collecting data? And we are ready, actually, because my job as well is one of my jobs is to actually source data from the market and actually help the team to do better analysis of those markets, and even actually digitizing that data and creating a stream of or a number of suppliers of information that we can aggregate and actually share with the farmers to make better decisions. So definitely point taken in terms of support in Botswana, and definitely I'll take with the team, but we will also like to get in touch with the in-country players in the industry to provide us with these leads of where the farmers are, what they're doing, and what can we play, because most of the time it's not necessarily that the solutions are with us. The solutions could be with you to say, look, this is what I need, this is what you should be doing, and that help us to understand your market,
yes,
and develop products that or service you better in that environment.